ター・テンマ、あなたは悪くない。あなたは医者としての仕事を全うしただけです。
It'll be difficult for him to
あ
accept
なた
that
は
though.
悪くない。サンドイッチを食べてく
Those
だ
look
さい。
so good.
そして少し眠ってください。
She noticed that he wasn't taking care of
あ
himself,
なたは
right?
生き延びてください。そして
Oh my god.
長期休暇の後の久々の出頭だったが、天才の腕は冴える一方だな。
終わった。
お、
いや、なんでもない。
Oh, someone's been hitting the bottles.
幸せにしてよ。私に苦労は似合わないから。外に出かける？
Or stay in. Nice. It's about to break it. Oh boy.
小牧の奥様は今お休みで。
お時間は取らせません。すぐに退散しますよ。
Ooh, I know who that is.
お久しぶりです。エヴァ・ハイネマンさん。
誰
Heinemann.
あなた？
連邦捜査局のルンゲです。
Lungi.
ルンゲ？ああ。事件もろくに解決できないヘボ刑事ね。
It's the long game. It's the long game. Hold on.
お父様の死後もこの大邸宅をこうして維持されていると
Eh,
大したもの
maintains.
ですね。
ご覧の通りよ。何不自由ないわ。何かお気に入りのものがあったらお持ち帰りになって。
She's got everything but nothing.
私はお酒
Lonely
が
as
あれ
hell.
ばそれで十分。
As long as I have my bottle, I'm good.
今日はちょっとお見せしたいものがありましてね。
Oh
こ
boy.
のネクタイなんですがね、9年前の品ですからね。
She'll remember.
シンプルな柄ですが、よく見ると折り柄が非常に凝っていて、なかなかいい品ですよ。しかし運よくこの商品は、その店の上得意の客に向けた限定生産品でしてね。その店の顧客リストにあなたの名前を見つけたんです。ある殺人事件の重要な鍵になるんですがね。
殺人。
She's so zoned out, checked out.
さあね。男にプレゼントなんて山ほどしたからいちいち覚えてらんないわ。何しろ私に寄ってくる男はみんな私のお金が目当てですもの。
よく思い出してください。
知らないって言ってるでしょ。私を心から愛する人間なんか言いやしないわ。だから逆に慰謝料山ほど踏んだくってやったのよ。3回ともね。ざまあみろだわ。あなたも何か欲しい？何か欲しいの？言ってごらんなさい。その代わり高くつくわよ。
何か思い出したらご連絡ください。
Wow.
今度来るときはお酒の一本も持ってらっしゃい。
Okay, let's see. Once he leaves, maybe she'll. Yeah. That's how you treated him back then.
エヴァ、
Man, do they really have to show me this again? It's making me really angry. Oh, I was gonna say, show it from this perspective.
ホルス、車を用意して。
Ah, okay.
ありがとうございます、ドクターテンマ。来月娘の結婚式なんだが出席できますかね。
ええ、大丈夫です。でも宴会で羽目を外さないように
This
して
should
く
be
ださいよ。
interesting if she's showing up here.
諦めてたんだが、ドクターテンマのおかげだ。
ヘッさんが頑張ったからですよ。
あんたがずっとついていてくれたら、娘どころか孫の結婚式まで拝めそうだ。
Hold on now.
あんた本当に名医だ。ずっとこの病院にいてくださいよ。
ドクターテンマ、 お客様です。
今から改心をするんだ。忙しいから断ってくれないか。
でも。
Yeah. Let's see how she presents herself this time.
久しぶりね、ケンゾー。
あ、
Yeah, look at this. Look at
私た
this.
ちいろいろあったわね。
I mean, fair enough, yes. Let me reel it back in. She did lose her
もうお
father.
休み？
Ooh. The background score and those sound effects of a monster.
ケンゾー。
I've seen that shot a few times of him from behind.
少しやつれたんじゃない？
いや、
長期休暇を取ってたそうね。そうよ。たまにはこうやって体を休めなくちゃ。
He had a few other things on his
仕事
mind.
の虫だもの。
君も少し痩せたんじゃないか。
いろいろあったから。
She hasn't been taking in anything much of substance.
春ね。覚えてる？10年前の春。そしたらあなたったら。
悪いんだけど。
え？
エヴァ、時間がないんだ。
ケンゾ
Is she going to have an
ー、やり
outburst?
直したいの。3回の結婚の失敗で初めて分かったの。私のこと本当に愛してくれたのはケンゾー、あなただけだったわ。
Kenzo?
悪いんだけど。
ケンゾーお願いケンゾー
Hold on.
君の気持ちは嬉しいけど、受けられないんだ。それじゃ。
待ってケンゾー、私黙ってたんだから。警察があなたのネクタイのこと聞いてきたけど。
So she did clock it.
私の言う通りにすれば黙っていてあげる
Oh,
わ。
fuck off.
僕にはやらなきゃいけないことがあるんだ。
She'll call him. Look at that.
それなら全部言うわよ。ネクタイのこと警察に話すわよ。9年前お父様たちを殺したのも全部あなたの仕業だって。
That's her true nature.
重要参考人としてドクター・テンマを引っ張れ。
しかしこれではフォルトナー夫妻とマウラー殺しの証拠には不十分では。
私が今言ってるのはハイデルベルク城での殺しの件だけだ。よくご協力くださいました。これで一気にたくさんの事件が解決するかもしれません。
Hey man, you watch out if Johan catches this.
もう一度考え直して。あ、君
There's something he's got to do.
ドクターテンマドクターテンマが殺人容疑。
Ooh, new music.
各病棟の入り口を塞げ。裏口も忘れるな。
Ooh, yes.
そっちはどうした？
Ah.
どきなさい。公務執行妨害だぞ。
ドクター・テンマが人殺しなんかするわけがない。
そうだ。
私たちの命を助けてくれた恩人よ。
ドクターテンマは無実だ。警察は帰れ。
How about that? Ooh.
なんだかえらい騒ぎですね。パトカーが山ほど来てますよ。ドクターテンマ。
そうか。何があったんだろう。
Oh boy.
相変わらずお忙しいですね、ドクターテンマ。
Yeah, he's got a few things on his plate. So is this it? This is Dr. Tenma on the run? Wow. Leaving it all behind.
僕は向こうでオペが待ってます。
待て、ドクターテンマ。ドクターテンマ。
A choice. All that time ago.
大丈夫だ。頑張れ。あんなやつ。あんなやつ。死んだ方がマシだ。
大変です。
You can tell he's been reliving that moment.
どこにもいないんです。
お久しぶりですね、先生。僕ですよ。
もう忘れちゃったかな。あの時の双子のことなんて死んでいたはずだったんだ。先生が僕を生き返らせてくれたんだ。
Almost feels like a recap episode in the sense that he's kind of reliving some of these moments, thinking back to them. It's time for the next chapter, eh? Dr. Tenma? Ah, how nice. Ah. Oh, that looks beautiful. I love that.
あ、なんだいそりゃ。3日前の新聞じゃねえか。今度はフェルデンで中年夫妻がやられたってな。犯人は医者だって話じゃねえか。
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
知り合いでもいるのかい？
会えるかどうかわからないが、行かなくちゃならないんだ。
Yeah. So it played out. Those murders are now being pinned on Dr. Tenma, right? Attached to him. Okay, folks, episode 8. You know, I've got to say, there's this distinct feeling of this essentially being the conclusion to a prologue, perhaps, right? Now it's truly kind of set into motion. I mean, you know, a lot of it actually even felt like a recap episode, right? Yes, you know, these flashbacks do serve a purpose as well, right? Given a lot of the reflection that's going on here, introspection, be it through Ava, be it through Dr. Tenma. I mean, a lot of it on Dr. Tenma's end, right? Because, of course, by the end of this episode, he's made his choice. I mean, he made his choice a bit earlier, actually. You know, he comes out of surgery. And initially, I thought maybe that's a bit of a flashback to that moment. Maybe, you know, it's this reoccurring dream that he's having. That moment he does operate on Johan, right? I thought it's kind of going into that. And then, you know, maybe he'll come to out of a dream. But no, it was an actual surgery that's going on. And this is after he kind of came back from his break. And once again, his colleagues are complimenting him about his performance, his ability, even after a bit of a break, a sabbatical, perhaps. But at that point, he said, that's it. That's the end. Something along those lines. So, you know, it appears that he made the choice already at that point. He knew that perhaps that is his last surgery, for the time being at least, because now he has something else that he has to pursue, right? Yeah, it's you know, looking back at it, I think it actually is a good wrap up. It is sad to see how things have played out for this man, a really kind person, right? A good person, a legitimately good person, someone that is adored by the people around him, right? The nurses, the patients, they just hold him in such high regard. And, you know, one of the standout moments is all of them kind of coming together to obstruct Lungi and his men. And I think that's also a bit of a crucial moment because Lungi is getting to see how Tenma is perceived by these people. And I'm sure Lungi is going to take note of this, keep this in mind. He is the type of person who likes to, you know, keep the details, remember the details. So yeah, you know, listen, you know, I've commented on Lungi and, you know, his pursuit of Dr. Tenma, right? And then this is essentially the most concrete and definitive pursuit of Dr. Tenma. I mean, by the end of it, he is a fugitive. It's at that point now, right? And now it's truly kind of reminding me of The Fugitive, the film, and then also the series The Fugitive is based on, right? From the 60s. Hell, you know, he's even rocking a jacket that's really quite reminiscent of the one Harrison Ford's character rocks in The Fugitive, right? So I think it's becoming clear now that Urasawa took a lot of inspiration from both of those, perhaps, or maybe the original from the 60s. So, you know, keeping that in mind, I'll see how things kind of deviate or kind of feel familiar or similar in that sense. But yeah, you know, it's perhaps one of the most jarring sights in the 8 episodes I've seen so far. Dr. Tenma strapped, right? There's that shot of him gripping the gun itself, again, letting us audience know that he is now in the mindset of okay, I am open to using this, right? The thing I'm really excited about is perhaps kind of going back to the things that might have happened in the 5-month time skip in that span. Maybe they'll do that, maybe they won't, but it'll be interesting to see his headspace in the lead up to that. And of course, it's yet another time skip. But I'm almost immediately thinking about people like Anna, Nina, right? Of course, I almost immediately get to see Johan is still at it. But now the striking shift here is the fact that they have someone to attach to these murders. It's falling on Dr. Tenma now, right? It's being reported that it's, this doctor. And of course, us the audience knows they're speaking of Dr. Tenma. So yeah, it's at that point now. He's a legitimate fugitive at this point. And I believe I spoke of this possibility a few episodes ago, right? That it is going to fall on him. And at this point, it is kind of falling on him in perhaps the most official capacity yet, right? Prime suspect at this point. I've got to say, I'm not sure if it was a little bit overkill. Lungi and the battalion that came along to, arrest Dr. Tenma or take him in. They brought in quite a few, but, perhaps they felt that he's a flight risk. And, from that perspective, indeed, he ended up being a flight risk. He's out of there, right? If you look at it from Lungi's perspective. And, speaking of Lungi's perspective and his prime suspect, Dr. Tenma, yeah, it just points to Dr. Tenma. Everything that is happening just points towards Dr. Tenma. Now you have the returning Eva, who at the end of the day, once again, shows her true colors and decides to pin everything on Tenma in this moment of desperation, right? Vindictive. Oh my goodness, is she vindictive? But, I'll speak on Eva because I actually think there's the potential here for a great character arc, depending on the story actually keeping her around for, the span of it. I think there is a lot of potential there for correction, for growth. I'm all for great character development. So I think the potential is there for sure, right? But yeah, Eva, my goodness, she's something else, isn't she? Again, I'll get to that. Let's kind of focus on Lungi and Tenma. Just, I don't know, man. Anything that happens just points towards Tenma. So yeah, I can understand how he is the prime suspect at this point. Lungi is kind of all in at this point, right? He firmly believes it's Tenma. So I kind of like that. Lungi's presented as this genius detective almost, but he's got the wrong person, completely wrong person pinned for this, as of this point at least, or at least as a prime suspect, right? But it's still logical. I think it's still logical for him to arrive at that conclusion. And the narrative itself is kind of painting Dr. Tenma in a corner as well, right? That is by design. So yeah, listen, this approach Dr. Tenma has taken at this point, yeah, it's not the greatest approach, right? He is essentially on the run now, right? He's taken it upon himself to go after Johan. And it was beginning to feel like that as well, right? I believe I mentioned this in some of my past discussions, that he feels so much responsibility, so much guilt. And you see here, it continues, right? Yet another middle-aged couple has been murdered. That's 2 more people added to the list of people that he feels guilt for, that he might have indirectly had a hand in, right? So yeah, he is now locked in, as that scene's playing out, I just kind of got this feeling of punished Tenma, right? He's a changed man for sure. And him carrying at this point, him being strapped at this point, being open to that idea, it doesn't mean that he's immediately going to shoot him and kill him. There's a lot of possibilities. But it's actually at that point now, he's crossed that bridge, right? That he's equipped himself. Sure, as of this point, I think the likeliest thing that he's thinking of is confronting Johan. Perhaps, trying to get him to give up or come in, give yourself up. It's never going to happen, of course. But I think ultimately he's already thinking about that possibility as well. There's that notion of, oh, I can take this one life and, bit my tongue, and save countless others, right? The lives he might take in the near future, right? If he's still around. And then beyond that, there's also the people that he uses, he manipulates, right? There's other lives that he could potentially save. Again, I'm trying to think from his perspective, maybe, at this point. It was clear, that he's going to be tested. He's going to be tested. He's going to be pushed to the limits, backed into corners. He's going to have to make some choices that he might regret, right? He'll have to do some things. He's just on that path now. Now, in terms of him kind of blending in, him not being easily spotted, again, he is Japanese, right? So realistically speaking, he should kind of stand out in a crowd, for sure, right? It's not as if it's a melting pot at that point. It's not as if there's a lot of diversity at that point. And honestly, even though he's got the stubble going and the longer hair, he doesn't look that much different than that picture in the newspaper. So he's got to be a little bit careful there. He's got to open right to that page, and his face is right there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he kind of navigates and traverses through this maze, essentially, trying to locate this ghost, this elusive figure who functions from the shadows so effectively, whose presence is just felt at all times, looming above you. So let's see, it's at that point now. So it had this definitive feeling of, okay, it's the end of that chapter of the story. Again, felt like a prologue. Now it's getting in there proper, right? This essentially might be the long stretch from this point on. His old life, it's out of the picture at this point. Let's see, by the conclusion of the story, if he returns, if he's able to return, if he's going to be allowed to return, or is he going to be in a position to return even, depending on his actions, right? That life is gone. And I felt a lot of sadness as he's kind of looking back at the hospital, as that life of his is slipping, right? Left in the distance. And then, he's thinking about that moment, that key moment, that crucial moment that he decided to save the life of a child. And it changed his life forever. And because of that one choice, he feels that he is responsible for so much of this. A lot of it, actually. You see that he really blames himself quite a bit, right? They kind of repeat the ending to the last episode in this one, in the opening to this episode. I've kind of noticed they do that. Sometimes they'll just repeat the scene, the ending scene in the beginning to the next episode. And I feel that him resigning also has to do with the fact that he took the Hippocratic Oath as a doctor to uphold specific ethical standards. I was actually at my youngest brother's graduation in Miami recently. He started his residency recently, and I got to hear the Hippocratic Oath, right? Everyone gets to their feet. And yeah, they recite it. It was quite a fascinating moment. It really was. And, as an older brother, I was really quite proud of my younger brother as well at that moment. But yeah, I feel like him resigning also has to do with that. Now, he's kind of openly carrying and thinking about that, right? So, his beliefs and his code of ethics is already kind of beginning to morph a bit, right? Now that he's resigned. And then, of course, beyond perhaps the oath, resigning also just, because he knows he's not going to be around. He's about to set sail. He's about to set off on a new path, right? Quite a self-destructive path at that, right? It could be, totally could be. But yeah, I'm really, as I keep speaking, I'm thinking of Nina, I'm thinking of Anna, right? Give me an update. I hope in the next episode, maybe I can get to check in on her. Or perhaps in the next few episodes. But yeah, so it begins, this cat and mouse chase. And I'm really quite excited, Listen, perhaps I wasn't a fan of some of the extensive recap and flashbacks because, it's only been 8 episodes. So I don't think I needed something that extensive in terms of a recap. Maybe there might be other reasons for it. You can let me know. But yeah, let's shift the focus to Eva. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of potential there for sure. right? And I actually enjoyed kind of checking in on that character since and how things have played out for her, and they have not played out pleasantly, have they? She's been hit by a dose of reality, right? My goodness, this is a hollow person at this point, right? She's turned to the drink to kind of fill the unbearable silence, to kind of check out from her own reality. Perhaps a bit of karma, as she's only been pursued by, gold digging men for ulterior motives. She has not been able to connect beyond the materialistic aspect of relationships, right? And in that time, you see that she simply has not forgotten about Tenma, right? See, I was really quite annoyed once again seeing her being manipulative once again, and then again bringing up that side of her. She's certainly capable of being a monster, that's for damn sure, right? Resorts to blackmail as one final resort, as she desperately tries to cling on to this safety net, this last bit of hope for happiness in her life, right? Listen, beyond all of that, beyond me thinking that, she deserves a bit of karma, that, she had this coming, I do feel pity for her. There is a semblance of pity, right? And, I am kind of partial to these types of characters because I see the potential for improvement, for correction, for character development in there, right? For those who know, Hana from Dark is quite similar to this character. Or not quite similar, there's some similarities there. It's a character that people really, really hated or love to hate. She made it really quite easy. But I really liked that character. I thought she was a fantastic member of that ensemble cast. And I think the same could be applicable to Ava here. I really do. So I personally hope that she does stick around in the story, that they do kind of check in on her from time to time, and that perhaps over the span of the story, she'll come to learn and really understand how wrong she was to treat Tenma in this way, right? I think even over the span of this time span, the 9 years, she has realized, because she herself is also thinking back to those moments, right? And they show us the flashback of how she treated him in that moment of need, discarded him, like yesterday's news, right? Tosses him the ring, onto the next. Even looks at him as the door closes in a manner that's so, I don't know, bitchy, for lack of a better term at the moment. But yeah, I think, there's been a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection by herself. Though, of course, she's had 3 husbands in that time span. And once again, she finds herself lonely. That's a lonely person, really lonely person. She's got everything. She's a materialistic person, and she has everything that she needs in that sense, but she is still so lost and empty, right? I like it. She felt so human. And I've got to say, I really, really enjoyed the voice acting. Top notch. It's acting. It's some great acting on display. Her tone, be it with Lungi, right? Then, of course, there's a few moments with Tenma, and I felt there's a few tender moments in there. I think for a few moments, she actually was being quite open, and I don't know, maybe she felt that she could finally get a semblance of her happiness back, right? But then to be shut down once again, right? Tenma's not having any of it, and you see over that time span, Tenma himself is not as naive as he used to be, because he himself is also reflecting on some of those moments, and that he should have known better. Even now, Tenma does have his flaws, right? And that's good. That's fine. You don't want the perfect protagonist either, right? No one's perfect. Tenma doesn't always seem to stand up for himself, or maybe doesn't seem to care about appearances, right? He didn't care. He just walked out of there like he did not care one bit that she's throwing out these allegations. Everyone can hear them. And then, of course, it ultimately goes to Lungi. And yeah, that's it. So, of course, his approach is something that is going to be analyzed from this point on. I'm really quite excited to dive into it. The choice he made to go after Johan himself. And it actually doesn't feel like he's trying to clear his name at this point. Maybe, maybe in the back of his mind that might be an issue, but I think his priority here is Johan. This monster that he believes he brought back into the world. Right? That's his priority. I don't even think he's legitimately thinking about clearing his name at this point. That can come later, maybe. It's an afterthought. But you really kind of get to see a person that is so used to getting everything she wants, right? Not getting the one thing she wants. And how she reacts to that. She really is capable of being quite petty, petulant, vindictive. My goodness. She could be really quite scary. Like I said, she's capable of being that monster herself. Everyone's capable of that. Everyone's got that inside of them. The capacity is there. But I think, and I hope that, this is another moment that she can look back at some point and think, wow, I really lashed out there. That was just terrible of me. And the thing is, this anime is so grounded and I'm so dialed in at this point that, from time to time, I'm not saying it out loud as I'm, watching the anime, but I'm thinking of counterparts, live action counterparts, actors that could play some of these roles, maybe down the line, maybe a few episodes in, maybe around the time I get to like 20 episodes or something, maybe beyond that, maybe I can do a bit of a fan casting session, I think that could be fun. Oh my God, that reminds me, there's actually an actor. Oh my God, I cannot remember his name. I've seen him in so many films over the years. A Japanese actor, same hairstyle, maybe even the same facial structure. God damn. I'll have to look it up. My goodness, the perfect casting for Tenma. Ooh. I'm so excited just thinking about it. But yeah, it's just a bit of fun, of course. But yeah, and then lastly, of course, it's always a treat to see Lungi on screen doing his thing. Listen, even if he's completely locked in on Tenma as the prime suspect, and again, it's realistic. It makes sense that Tenma is his prime suspect at this point, especially after the most recent development of Eva just lashing out and pinning everything on him, right? It doesn't hinder his approach or how he approaches things, right? He's still so fascinating to watch as he does his thing. I loved how, he's kind of in there really reading the situation, reading Eva, walking around the room, taking in the details. He'll slowly kind of look around, right? He picked up on the photo on the ground that even, all this time later, 9 years plus later, she's still thinking about him. So he must have known that she is covering for him and that maybe she might be open to calling him at some point. So he's like, okay, I'll give her some time. But here's my card. You see that a lot in shows and films. A detective that knows there's more to it than meets the eye at this point, and they'll be like, okay, that's fine. Here's my card, right? It's this tactic. Let's give them some time to think it over. Maybe they'll come to a different conclusion, and maybe they'll reach out at some point. But yeah, I love him. Just love Lungi, man. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. Yeah, man, I've got to say, I'm really quite excited for the next episode because now it's this turning point, isn't it? By the end of this, my goodness, it's really set something grand into motion, hasn't it? Most exciting. But yeah, if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in timer-based full length or perhaps even early access to the next few episodes right now, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel. If you're interested, the links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media, things like Twitter and Instagram. I'm definitely a bit more active on Twitter. So yeah, consider supporting the channel just by dropping a follow on Twitter. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, folks. And thank you for your time because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for episode 9. Until then, take it easy.